Look, we all want to be surfers. So I tried downwinding on my Pumpfoil board. It works, but the challenges that go with it and where to do that, you'll find it out in that video. Let's go.
Welcome to Matt on Foil.
And welcome to another video. We know that it's possible to downwind on Swiss lakes with a Pumpfoil. We have Yvon Labarthe. He showed us many times that it's possible, and he's pretty much a master of it. He did 20 Ks of downwinding, which is impressive. My knowledge so far, I struggled with the sub foiling, pretty difficult. I did some parawinging, a little more easy, but still you have to have a huge board. And I got into wake thieving, and I'm getting better at it too. So when I was at Lake Geneva, I asked Yvon if he could send me a location where to downwind. So he drew a funny little penis on a map, and I went to Rolle, and I saw, well, it is windy, it is possible. So I put on my gear and went out to see how the wind was. And already walking out, I saw there was a lot of seaweed close to the harbor, and I knew that's going to be challenge number one. But the wind looked very good, and I was sure it is possible. If not, I was just going to pump around, and that should be fun as well. And then I saw someone else also trying to get into the bumps, so that's probably something people do there. I was quite nervous for my first start, as always, new location. So after 2 fails, I went out. Even though it was super warm, I put on my wetsuit, the shorty, and the life jacket because I didn't know how far I was gonna be out, and I didn't want to get cold. Plus, it's also legal if you have a swimming life vest on. So that's what I did. I went out, and as soon as I was in the bumps, I started to get on the wave and go downwind, but that was too early. I saw it too late, and I hit the first algae, the first seaweed. So I swam back, and as you can see, pretty nasty. As soon as you have 2 or 3 of those on your mat or on your foil, you're good to go, and you have to start again. So I knew that for the next time, I had to go out further. So I kept on pumping before heading downwind. And as soon as I headed downwind, I realized I had to move my feet. And here you can see I had to move my foot back a little bit because the nose was pointing more down, and that helped a lot. And once I was feeling the bumps, I was on the waves, it actually worked quite well. And it is super easy to surf because it's not exhausting, and if you have to pump, with the Pumpfoil, it's so easy. The small board makes it so effortless compared to a long downwind board, or even one you go winging or parawinging with. So that is really fun. Also, the constant thrill of knowing that if you fall, you have to swim back for a long time, that is exciting. But the longer it got, the more risky I got, and I started to try to turn on the waves, but just a little bit, because I'm not that good of a surfer. I'm actually not good of a surfer at all. Plus, I had a pretty big front wing. I used a Barracuda XL. It's 1600 square centimeters. Pretty fast, but also very good low end. So for surfing the waves like that, it's really cool. A few things. I remember the podcast I did with Dave West, and he told me, if you are pumping, you're not on the wave.
If you think you're on a wave and you find yourself pumping, why are you pumping? Because it was one of the best takeaways for one of my students from the foil drive camp was I would show him footage of himself on the wave pumping. And what it was is, so there's like the top of the wave, there's the middle, and there's the bottom. And he's near the bottom. So he's having to pump, but he thinks he's on the wave, but you're not on the wave. You're actually in front of it. And it's the worst place to be. It's like an uphill.
So sometimes I was pumping, I was like, all right, I'm just at the wrong spot. So I had to turn and not try to overtake the next wave, but just head left or right until I have the next bump. So when I'm pumping, I try to not go downwind directly, but to go on the next bump. That's what I did. Another thing, again, from the podcast with Dave West. Dave, if you're watching, thank you very much for your tips, man. They really help. And he called it the mast height management.
Yeah, mast height management.
The more up you are on foil, the faster you are, the more down you are, the slower you are. So that helps as well to stay on the wave. Plus, I use the 85 centimeter mast just because I wanted to be sure to not breach. Because once you breach, yeah, you swim. But I got used to these bumps and it was really cool.
Alors là, Yvon, je te dire, c'est magnifique. Oh, sauf les algues.
I did 3 runs this afternoon, and the third one I didn't record because I was thinking I was done, but then I went again and I didn't restart the watch. And it was like 1 to 1.5 kilometer runs. Not super long runs, but pretty cool runs, decent runs, I must say. And it wasn't exhausting at all. I think I could have done longer runs and really go for an Yvon downwinder, maybe 10, maybe 15 Ks, and then just restart wherever I fall. But maybe more in winter, not because of the temperature of the lake, but because of the algae, the seaweed. It is really hard to actually make the slalom around that, because usually you see them pretty late, and once you have one, and I cannot do that turn that Yvon did to ditch the algae. So if you fall because of seaweed and not due to a mistake, that I imagine being pretty difficult, pretty hard. So I used the big board. I used a 20-liter board, the LeDoigt, which is kind of surf style. Not only because it looks like a surfer, and as I said, we all want to be surfers, but also if I were to fall, I could more easily swim back to shore. If I have these small 7-8 liter boards, then it's really a pain. But with a board like that, you can actually touch the water and still like restart from out of the water somehow. But swimming back is really the big advantage. But as everyone, this run as well needed to come to an end, and I already scouted and saw that there was some seaweed ahead. And that's actually how I got down as well. I touched some seaweed and I just went down slowly, and as you can see here, really it just stops you. Really, there's no way around it. You can go super high, but then the danger is there that you breach, but there's so much seaweed. And it was not only it didn't only suck to get out like that, but it's also like a bit nasty. Really, swimming through these algae is a pain.
Downwinding is really cool, but I'm gonna need to come back in winter. The seaweed, the algae, so incredibly dense, and I would love to downwind without those. So I'm gonna come back in winter and do a proper downwinder with Yvon, with Steve, but not like this. This is too much. But still kind of fun though.
That's been my first Pumpfoil downwinder. It's surely not going to be the last. The next video is going to be all about wake thieving, also inspired by Yvon. I think I've pretty much got the hang of it, and I'd like to share my experiences. See you guys in the next one. Cheers.